Elias Kale adjusted the controls of his landing craft as it descended through the thick, swirling clouds of Nyxara. The planet's surface was obscured by a mist so dense that it seemed to swallow the horizon. Yet the readings on his scanner were clear. High levels of residual energy, faint signs of life, and structures that should not exist on a world considered uninhabited. Elias felt a twinge of excitement. Humanity had mapped thousands of planets, but Nyxara had always remained an enigma, a question mark at the edge of the known galaxy. The landing was rough, but the craft touched down without critical damage. Elias climbed out, the alien air thick in his lungs. It smelled faintly metallic with a hint of ozone. The mist wrapped around him like a living thing, and every sound, every small rustle or distant groan of the terrain, echoed loudly in the eerie quiet. Elias switched on his scanner and began walking toward the nearest energy signature. He had trained for situations like this, but a subtle unease crawled along his spine. There was something different about this planet. Not hostile exactly, but aware. As he moved, the ground beneath him glimmered faintly as though the soil itself absorbed and reflected light. Strange rock formations jutted from the ground in impossible angles like the skeletal remains of something long dead. Then, out of the mist, came a voice. Soft, clear, distinct. "Are you alone, human?" Elias froze. He looked around, scanning the fog-shrouded valley. No one was there. No figure, no shadow, no movement. Just the swirling gray mist. "Hello?" He called out cautiously. "Who's there?" No reply, only the echo of his own voice bouncing off unseen cliffs. The question repeated itself in his mind, though he didn't hear it again aloud. Still, an unfamiliar chill ran down his spine. The voice carried something strange. Fear. Not fear for itself, but a fear directed at him, as if the planet, or whatever lived here, knew something he didn't. Elias's logical mind tried to dismiss it. Voices could be projections, echoes, anomalies in the atmosphere. But the feeling was real, deep, primal. He pressed forward, walking toward a ridge where the scanner showed the energy reading was strongest. Each step was careful, measured. His boots sank slightly into the soft, glowing soil, leaving prints that disappeared almost as soon as they were made. Shadows moved in the mist, not of creatures but of the fog itself, shaping and reshaping in ways that tricked the eyes. Elias stopped, trying to see if anything moved independently. Nothing. Then he saw it, a structure, half buried in the earth yet massive. Tall walls of metal and stone etched with glowing symbols that pulsed faintly. The designs were unlike any human language or art. They shifted slightly like reflections in water, forming patterns that made his head spin when he looked directly at them. The structure had no visible entrance, yet the energy reading spiked closer to it, as if something inside or beneath was alive. "Hello?" Elias said again, more firmly. "If someone is there, I'm not here to harm you." The mist thickened around him, but he felt the energy in the air respond, subtle vibrations under his feet. Then the voice returned. "Are you alone?" It was clearer this time, closer, yet still impossible to locate. Elias swallowed hard. The words carried weight he could not explain. They weren't just a question. They were a warning, a shiver of fear wrapped in sound. I am alone," he replied cautiously. "I have no one with me." There was a pause, long enough for Elias to wonder if he had imagined the voice. Then, almost like a sigh through the mist, it whispered, "Then you are far from safe." Elias's mind raced. He had been trained to explore alien worlds, to face danger, but this was different. He felt observed not by a predator or an enemy, but by something intelligent, something aware, something that weighed his very presence as though he were an unexpected anomaly. Despite the unease, curiosity won. Elias approached the structure, careful to keep his scanner active. The glowing symbols were mesmerizing. Some of them seemed to react to his presence, brightening as he drew closer. His fingers itched to touch the nearest wall, but he hesitated. There was something sacred about this place, something that demanded respect. Elias noticed faint impressions in the ground around the structure, footprints but not human. The prints were narrow, with delicate, elongated toes or claws depending on how one looked at them. They formed a path that seemed to enter the structure and vanish. There was no other evidence of life. The thought struck him. Maybe the voice wasn't alone either. Maybe he was being watched, not just by a presence, but by a guardian, He stepped closer. The mist around the base of the structure parted slightly, as if pushed away by an invisible hand. Elias paused. The voice came again, not from the air but somehow from within the walls themselves. "Do you understand what you have found, human?" Elias swallowed. I don't, not yet." "Then you will not leave unchanged." The words carried weight, finality, and a strange sadness. Elias felt it press against his chest, a sensation almost like a heartbeat but not his own. The fog seemed alive now, curling around him in patterns that suggested eyes, faces, figures that were never fully formed. He took a deep breath and touched the wall. The surface was cold, smoother than any stone, yet somehow organic. It pulsed slightly under his hand. Elias's scanner beeped wildly, registering energy readings off the charts. The symbols glowed brighter, rearranging themselves as he pressed. Shapes he could not comprehend formed briefly, then faded. "Do you fear me?" the voice asked. Softer now, almost tentative. Elias shook his head, though he wasn't sure why. I do not. But I do not understand you." A pause, then the voice's tone shifted. Not anger, not malice, but a kind of careful assessment. Few humans come this far. Fewer survive their own curiosity. Elias felt the words like a challenge. He straightened, chest swelling slightly with the old human pride that had driven explorers for centuries. "I will survive. I always survive." The mist seemed to ripple with a soundless laugh. Elias's heartbeat quickened, not from fear but from exhilaration. He realized that whatever this was, it was testing him. And humans had always thrived on challenge, on danger, on the unknown. For hours, Elias examined the outer walls of the structure. Every symbol seemed to tell a story, though one he could not read. Patterns shifted as he moved, responding to his touch, his presence, even his thoughts. Occasionally the voice would return, posing cryptic questions, asking him riddles about trust, solitude, and intention. Each time he answered honestly, guided by instinct and a quiet confidence in human intuition. By the time Nyxara's twin moons began to rise, casting pale light over the valley, Elias felt a strange connection with the structure. The voice spoke one last time before he retreated to his craft for rest. "Sleep well, human. The path you have begun cannot be undone, and you are not yet alone." Elias shivered, not from cold, but from the meaning in the words. Not alone. Someone or something was waiting for him, watching him, and he could not explain the fear he felt in response, nor the thrill. He lay in the small cockpit of his landing craft, eyes wide open, thinking of the walls, the symbols, the voice, and the footprints. For the first time in his life, Elias understood that human curiosity was not just a tool. It was a gift, a weapon, a key. And that gift would be tested in ways he could not yet imagine. Outside, the mist of Nyxara shifted and swirled, hiding the secrets that had waited for centuries, waiting for someone human enough to understand, brave enough to continue and clever enough to survive. And somewhere inside the walls the voice lingered, carrying a fear and a hope that Elias could feel even without seeing her. Morning on Nyxara was not like any morning Elias had ever experienced. The twin moons, still faint in the sky, cast silvery light over the valley, illuminating the mist in delicate streaks. The air was crisp, almost electric, and the strange energy that had drawn him here pulsed faintly beneath his boots. He stepped out of his landing craft, scanning the structure from yesterday. The symbols on the walls glimmered faintly in the moonlight, almost as if they had remembered his touch. Elias approached cautiously. His scanner detected higher energy levels closer to the heart of the structure. He pressed a hand against the wall. The surface pulsed gently beneath his fingers, almost like a heartbeat, and the mist around him shifted. He felt eyes, unseen but aware. "Do you wish to enter?" the voice whispered. Elias startled, then nodded. "Yes, I want to understand." Then step forward, human. A panel in the wall slid silently open, revealing a passage that led downward. It was wide enough for him to walk comfortably, but the light was faint, coming from glowing symbols along the walls. Elias descended carefully, every step echoing softly in the narrow corridor. The air was cooler here, and the faint hum of energy vibrated through the stone and metal. He felt as though the planet itself was alive, watching him. The corridor widened into a large chamber. The walls and floor were smooth, polished with an alien craftsmanship that suggested intelligence far beyond his own. The room was circular, with a dome ceiling high above, etched with patterns that shifted subtly as he looked. At the center was a pedestal bathed in soft blue light. Upon it rested a device that seemed to pulse with energy, though it had no visible moving parts. "Human," the voice said more clearly now. "This is the core of what remains. Few beings have touched it and fewer understood it." Elias approached the pedestal, careful to observe rather than touch. His hands itched with curiosity, but a part of him knew that this was no ordinary object. The symbols on the walls began to glow brighter as he moved closer, forming patterns that seemed almost like sentences, though he could not read them. His scanner picked up intricate energy matrices, codes perhaps, or messages frozen in power. "You are brave," the voice continued. "But bravery alone does not grant understanding. You must show wisdom, patience, and insight." Elias swallowed. "Then I will do my best." The mist swirled around him, and for a moment he felt dizzy, as if the room itself was alive. The patterns on the walls shifted again, forming images. He saw visions of a great civilization, towering cities with floating structures, ships that glimmered like stars, beings with elongated limbs and luminous eyes walking among machines of incredible design. And then he saw the catastrophe, a flash of light, chaos, and the same beings disappearing, leaving behind ruins and the technology that now lay before him. He staggered back. What happened here? Their knowledge, the voice explained, was their greatest gift and their greatest curse. They reached too far, too fast. The hub of their civilization fell, leaving behind fragments. Fragments I have guarded for centuries. Elias felt awe and sadness, but also a spark of hope. If he could understand this knowledge, it could help humanity. Not just survive, but grow, explore, and learn. He stepped closer to the pedestal, examining the device. It pulsed softly, almost as if it were breathing. Symbols projected into the air, hovering like holograms, forming intricate shapes he could not yet decode. "Can I touch it?" he asked, voice trembling slightly. "Yes," the voice said. "But understand this. Only those with a clear mind and a pure intent may interact fully. Your choices will shape what you take and what remains here forever." Elias nodded, taking a deep breath. He placed both hands gently on the pedestal. A shock of energy ran through him, not harmful but invigorating. The symbols on the walls expanded, wrapping around him, forming patterns that seemed to speak directly to his mind. Knowledge in raw form flowed into his consciousness. Languages, science, star maps, histories, and principles of diplomacy far advanced beyond human civilization. He stumbled backward, overwhelmed by the flood. "This is incredible," he whispered. "It's more than I imagined." "You are capable of more than you know," the voice said, softer now. "Few humans possess the courage to reach this far, and even fewer the intellect to understand it. But your spirit, it resonates." Elias steadied himself, breathing deeply. He realized something important. The voice was not just a guardian. It was testing him, not with weapons or traps, but with knowledge. And humans, driven by curiosity, creativity, and empathy, were uniquely suited to this test. As he explored further, he discovered side chambers filled with preserved messages, holographic projections, and tools that defied description. Some showed simulations of events, others recorded decisions made by the extinct species. Elias noticed a recurring theme. Every civilization, no matter how advanced, faced choices that defined its survival. And every message emphasized cooperation, foresight, and understanding, a mirror to the human condition. He paused at one projection, showing a council of the extinct beings deliberating over whether to expand into nearby star systems. The debate was fierce, but the focus was clear. Knowledge was valuable only when shared responsibly. Elias felt a swell of pride. Humanity was still young compared to this lost species, yet humans had proven time and again that ingenuity and resilience could overcome impossible odds. The voice spoke again, almost reverently. "You understand, human. Even in isolation, you carry the potential to preserve and to grow. But there is more to learn, more that cannot be known without risk." Elias felt a thrill. The risk excited him, yes, but more than that, he felt responsibility. Whatever knowledge he gained here could benefit not just him, but all of humanity. He realized that humans were not just explorers, they were guardians, learners, and sometimes the last hope for what was lost. He examined another chamber, this one darker, filled with crystalline structures that hummed with energy. When he touched one, he felt visions again. Battles fought, experiments conducted, ships launched into space. The beings who lived here had pushed the limits of intelligence and creativity, but the weight of their ambition had broken them. Yet the voice reminded him that the essence of their civilization, wisdom, insight, and purpose remained intact, preserved for one who could understand. Hours passed, though Elias lost track of time. He recorded everything in his portable database, careful not to disrupt the environment. The more he learned, the more he felt the bond between human curiosity and the legacy of this lost species. Every question he asked, every pattern he interpreted, seemed to resonate with the voice, which guided him patiently, sometimes cryptically, sometimes gently warning him to consider consequences. Eventually, Elias returned to the pedestal room. He sat on the floor, exhausted but exhilarated. The voice spoke one final time for the moment. "Rest, human. You have begun what few could endure. Tomorrow you will continue, and tomorrow you will discover that understanding alone is not enough. You must act, decide, and prove that your spirit can carry what is entrusted to you." Elias nodded, feeling the weight and promise of the words. For the first time in his life, he understood the full measure of human potential: curiosity, courage, creativity, and the ability to grow from knowledge. Nyxara was not just a planet. It was a test, a guardian, and a teacher, and he, a lone human, had been chosen to engage with it. As he climbed back into his landing craft for rest, Elias looked out at the misty valley. The structure seemed to watch him, pulsing faintly, alive in a way beyond explanation. And somewhere in the shifting fog, the voice lingered. No longer just a question or warning, but a companion, a guide, and a silent observer of the human who dared to reach further than most. Elias closed his eyes, feeling both fear and exhilaration. He was alone, yes, but he carried within him the legacy of human resilience, the promise of discovery, and the spark that had driven explorers since the dawn of their species. And he knew deep in his heart that whatever awaited him in the depths of Nyxara, he would meet it, not as a timid intruder, but as a human, brave, clever, and ready. Elias Kyle woke to the faint hum of Nyxara beneath his landing craft. The twin moons still hung low in the sky, casting silver shadows across the misty valley. Despite the strangeness of the planet, sleep had been surprisingly deep. His mind buzzed with the knowledge he had absorbed yesterday, yet questions remained. Who or what was the voice? Why had it chosen him? And what exactly had been left behind by the beings that had vanished? He stepped out, scanning the mist-shrouded structure. The symbols glowed faintly as if welcoming him back. Elias had felt the subtle pulse of intelligence in the walls before, but now it was stronger, almost anticipatory. The voice spoke again, soft, calm, and more tangible than ever. "You have returned, human. You have seen, but you have not yet understood." Elias swallowed. "I want to understand. Please, show me." A panel in the wall slid open silently, revealing a corridor that descended deeper than before. Elias stepped inside. The passage was lit by patterns of light projected from the walls, moving in slow, hypnotic sequences. As he moved forward, the air thickened with a strange warmth, almost like the presence of a living being. He realized that the voice had a form, though he could not see it yet. At the end of the corridor, the walls opened into a vast chamber. Light poured from an orb suspended above the floor, casting intricate shadows across the room. The air vibrated with energy, and then standing, or perhaps hovering, before him was a figure. Lyra. Elias froze. The form was humanoid, but not human. She glimmered faintly, her body translucent, shaped like a woman yet composed of light and energy. Symbols flowed along her surface, shifting like the patterns in the walls he had seen before. Her eyes, bright and intelligent, fixed on him. "You are Elias Kale," she said, voice melodic but firm. "I am Lyra, the guardian of this place. I have been waiting for one capable of understanding what was lost here." Elias's breath caught. You're real?" "As real as your mind allows you to perceive," Lyra replied. "I am the remaining consciousness of those who built this civilization. When they vanished, I remained, entrusted with their knowledge, their wisdom, and their fears. And now you have come." Elias took a step forward, fascinated and cautious. "Why me? Why a human?" Lyra's light pulsed slowly. "Because humans are unusual. You are curious, brave, and capable of compassion. You question, you adapt, and you persevere. Other species may have intelligence, but few possess your combination of intellect and spirit. That is why the voice called to you. The words filled Elias with a strange pride. Humans had always reached for the unknown, pushed boundaries, and survived against odds that often seemed impossible. And here, on a distant, mist-covered planet, human traits had made him worthy. Lyra raised her hands, or what could be called hands, and the air shimmered. Holographic images appeared around them, showing glimpses of Nyxara's past. Cities of incredible design floated above the landscape, powered by energy matrices that defied human science. Beings walked among machines that could manipulate gravity and bend light. It was a civilization advanced far beyond Elias's imagination. They were wise, Elias whispered, and powerful. They were, Lyra agreed. But power alone is dangerous. They reached beyond their control and created a catastrophe that destroyed their world. Their intention was never malevolent, but ambition without foresight became their undoing. That is why I remain, to ensure that knowledge is not lost and to guide those who can wield it responsibly. Elias looked around the chamber. So all of this, the voice, the symbols, the knowledge, it's a test? In part, Lyra said, but not merely a test of courage. It is a test of intent, understanding, and character. Many would seek this place for power or fame or greed. Humans have done so too, but you have shown patience, curiosity, and respect. That is why I speak to you now directly. The air vibrated, and Elias felt the presence of centuries of intelligence in Lyra. It was not overwhelming, but it was immense. What do you want from me? He asked. Not from you, Lyra corrected. With you, you will have access to the knowledge of Nyxara, but it is not a gift freely given. You must prove that you can use it wisely, that you can carry it without destruction. The civilizations that came before you failed in their ambition. You must succeed, Elias nodded. The gravity of the responsibility settled on his shoulders, yet it did not crush him. He had faced challenges before in simulations and explorations, but never like this. This was more than survival. It was the test of human potential itself. Lyra extended her hand toward him, and the air shimmered again. Look closely, human. See the choices that were made, the lessons that were learned, and the consequences of actions taken without foresight. Elias studied the images. He saw councils debating over expansion, scientists creating machines that could alter ecosystems, and fleets of ships launched into unknown space. Each decision seemed rational at the time, yet the outcomes were disastrous. The being's society crumbled, not because of malice or failure of intelligence, but because foresight alone was not enough. They lacked wisdom, empathy, and adaptability. Elias realized then the deeper lesson. Humans were imperfect, yes, but imperfections brought adaptability. Curiosity brought innovation. Empathy brought cooperation. Where another species might fail by rigidity, humans had a chance to succeed through creativity and moral choice. You see, Lyra said, voice softening. Humans are unique. Your flaws are strengths. Your questions are your tools. Your courage is your key. That is why you were called here, Elias Kale. To learn, to understand, and to prove that your kind can rise above the mistakes of others. Elias felt a swell of emotion. Pride, yes, but also responsibility. The choices he made now, how he absorbed and applied this knowledge, would matter not just for himself, but for humanity. This was no longer an exploration. This was stewardship. Lyra's light pulsed, forming a map of the stars above Nyxara. The universe is vast, she continued. Countless civilizations rise and fall. Some leave knowledge behind. Some leave nothing. The path you walk now will determine if humanity leaves a legacy or simply drifts among the stars unnoticed. That is why understanding alone is not enough. You must act wisely and decisively. Elias studied the star map. Some of the coordinates corresponded to regions humans had already explored. Others were unknown, mysterious, or dangerous. He realized that the knowledge of Nyxara could accelerate humanity's growth, but it could also become a burden if misused. The weight of it pressed on him, yet also strengthened his resolve. I understand, he said finally. I will learn. I will understand, and I will use it responsibly. Lyra's light glimmered brighter. Then you begin the true journey. There will be trials, mental, moral, and physical. You will be challenged in ways beyond your imagination, but you are ready, human. You possess what others lack, courage, intelligence, and the spark of empathy. That is why you will endure where others failed. Elias felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration. The trials would not be easy. He would face challenges unlike any human had faced before, yet he also knew that humanity had always risen to challenges, and that he was not merely an explorer, but a representative of his species. The thought filled him with determination. Lyra's voice softened, almost like a whisper carried on the mist. "Rest now, human. You will need your strength. Tomorrow your trial begins, and remember, even in solitude you are not alone. I will guide you, and the wisdom of those who came before will stand with you." Elias nodded, feeling a calm determination. He returned to his craft for rest, but sleep did not come immediately. His mind replayed the visions, the lessons, and the presence of Lyra. He realized that human potential was not just about survival. It was about growth, understanding, and the courage to act wisely. He was beginning to understand that Nyxara's test was more than a challenge. It was a mirror, reflecting humanity's strengths and weaknesses back at him, and offering a chance to rise above both. Outside, the mist shifted as if acknowledging his resolve. The symbols on the walls pulsed softly, a silent rhythm of approval. And somewhere deep within the structure, Lyra watched, her light steady, patient, and filled with expectation. She had waited centuries for one capable of carrying the legacy of her people, and now she had found him. The morning on Nyxara was silent but electric, as if the planet itself waited in anticipation. Sliaskale stepped from his landing craft, feeling the mist curl around him like fingers, watching, testing. Yesterday he had met Lyra and glimpsed the lost civilization's brilliance. Today he would face the first of the trials, a challenge that would test not only his mind but the essence of what it meant to be human. "You are ready," Lyra's voice echoed softly in the chamber. Though she remained unseen, "Your trial begins now. Each challenge will test a part of you: intellect, courage, empathy, and creativity. You will fail sometimes, but that is expected. Perseverance is what I seek." Elias nodded. His pulse quickened, not from fear alone, but from anticipation. Humans had always faced the unknown, from the earliest explorers of Earth's oceans to the first spacefarers. Trials were not obstacles, they were invitations to grow. The first chamber he entered was circular, walls lined with symbols that shifted as he looked. In the center, a platform hummed softly, and hovering above it was a translucent screen showing a complex puzzle. Shapes rotated, interlocked, and changed colors at random. Elias studied the puzzle, recognizing patterns, symmetry, and logical connections. Minutes passed, then hours. The mist in the room thickened as he worked, testing his patience and concentration. His hands moved carefully, guided by both instinct and reason. Slowly, the puzzle began to yield, the symbols aligning into patterns that shimmered with approval. The screen dissolved, replaced by a doorway that had appeared where none existed before. "Intellect tested," Lyra said. "You succeeded, but understanding is not enough." Elias took a deep breath and stepped forward. The next chamber was darker, the air heavier. He saw a series of holographic projections, beings in conflict, civilizations collapsing, and choices that led to disaster. Each scenario required him to choose a course of action. The weight of responsibility pressed upon him, for he realized that even simulated decisions could carry consequences if mishandled. He studied each situation carefully. Some options tempted immediate gain. Others demanded sacrifice, patience, and foresight. Elias remembered Lyra's words about human flaws being strengths. He made choices based on empathy, on understanding the needs of others, and on the long-term consequences rather than immediate rewards. The chamber responded. Walls shifted, opening to a new space filled with mirrors. Not ordinary mirrors, but reflective surfaces showing not just appearances but intentions, fears, and desires. Elias saw himself from multiple perspectives, as a boy who dreamed of the stars, as a soldier who had faced danger, as an explorer walking into the unknown. "You see yourself. Human," Lyra said, her voice warmer now. "To understand knowledge, you must first understand yourself. Only then can your choices be wise." Elias nodded. It was a difficult reflection, confronting fears he had hidden even from himself. Yet he felt stronger for it. Humans were capable of self-awareness and growth, traits that no other species on Nyxara had mastered. The next trial was physical. A series of platforms suspended over a pit of shifting energy, moving in unpredictable patterns. Elias needed agility, timing, and strategy to cross. His muscles burned, his heart raced, yet he moved with determination. One misstep would have ended the attempt, but Elias relied on intuition and observation. He watched the patterns, adjusted his pace, and leaped from one platform to another, crossing safely to the other side. "You adapt," Lyra said. "Humans learn, adjust, survive. That is why you endure." But the final trial was the most challenging, not of mind or body, but of heart. A projection appeared before him. A holographic child, alone, frightened, and in danger. Elias could see the child trapped in a collapsing structure. Around him, light shimmered, representing choices. He could save the child, but doing so might collapse the structure further, risking other unknown lives. He could ignore the child and continue safely, preserving his path through the trial. Elias's mind raced. Every instinct, every lesson from humanity's history of exploration warned him to act wisely. But his heart pushed him forward. Without hesitation, he moved to save the child. Energy pulsed around him as he carefully navigated the collapsing projections, guiding the holographic child to safety. The room went silent. The holographic child vanished, replaced by the familiar shimmer of Lyra. Her form solidified, glowing brighter than before. "You understand, human. Courage without empathy is hollow. Intelligence without morality is dangerous. You have shown that your kind can combine these traits: intuition, empathy, logic, and bravery. That is why you succeed where others failed." Elias sank to the floor, exhausted yet exhilarated. The trials had tested every part of him, mind, body, heart, and he had endured. He realized that humans' unpredictability, often seen as a flaw, was precisely what allowed him to succeed. Where other species might have followed logic or instinct alone, humans could balance both, creating solutions beyond expectation. Lyra moved closer, her form pulsing softly. "Your species carries potential few understand. You are not perfect, yet you are capable. Your perseverance, your compassion, and your intellect are proof. I have observed countless beings, yet few would survive this trial. You, human, are one of the rare exceptions." Elias struggled to find words. I didn't do it alone. I had to rely on what I know, what I feel, on what humans are capable of." Lyra's voice was almost gentle, almost maternal. "Yes, that is the lesson. Knowledge is not merely data. Wisdom is not merely memory. Understanding comes from the heart, guided by intellect and tempered by action. That is what makes humans exceptional." Elias looked around the chamber. The symbols on the walls shimmered, forming patterns he now recognized as a language. Not words, but meaning, energy, and intent combined. The room was alive with history, lessons, and the hope of the extinct civilization, and he understood that humans were capable of carrying forward not only knowledge but responsibility. Hours passed. Elias explored the chamber further, learning how the projections recorded not just actions but intentions. Every choice, every decision, even hesitation was part of the lesson. He realized that the trials had not been about winning or losing, but about revealing the potential within him. Humans were resilient, adaptable, and capable of empathy in ways that could surpass logic alone. Finally, the chamber opened to a vast observation deck overlooking the valley. The mist swirled below, and Nyxara's twin moons glimmered in the sky. Lyra stood beside him, her light steady, unwavering. "You have passed the trials, Elias Kell. You have proven yourself capable of understanding and of action. The next step is to carry what you have learned, wisely, responsibly, and courageously." Elias nodded, feeling a profound connection to the planet, to Lyra, and to humanity itself. He realized that this experience was more than personal achievement. It was a reflection of what humans could be when faced with challenge: explorers, thinkers, guardians, and creators. "Will I ever see this again?" he asked. Lyra's form shimmered. "You will carry it within you. Nyxara is no longer just a place. It is a part of your understanding, your growth, your legacy. And when the time comes, others will follow. Some may fail, but humans will endure, because your kind carries what others lack: heart, courage, and the spark of ingenuity." Elias felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. The trials had changed him. He was no longer just an explorer seeking knowledge. He was a human tested, proven, and trusted to carry a legacy. And somewhere deep inside he understood that Nyxara's greatest lesson was not about the past. It was about the future, about what humanity could achieve if it chose courage over fear, curiosity over complacency, and action over hesitation. As he left the chamber and returned to his craft for rest, the mist of Nyxara seemed to part respectfully, guiding him, watching him, acknowledging his achievement. Lyra's voice followed him softly, carrying both reassurance and expectation. Rest, human. Tomorrow brings new revelations, challenges that will further test what you are capable of. But know this: you have proven that humans, despite imperfection, possess the strength to carry forward what others could not. That is why you endure and why you are not alone. Elias lay in the cockpit, staring at the soft glow of the valley below. He felt exhaustion, yes, but also a sense of triumph and purpose. Humans had always reached for the unknown, and today, he had not only reached it but embraced it fully. He understood that his species' greatest strength was not just intellect or courage, but the ability to combine both with empathy, creativity, and resilience. The trials were over, but the journey had just begun. Nyxara held more secrets, more knowledge, and more tests, and Elias Kale, the human, was ready to face them. Not alone, but as a representative of the species that had always dared to reach for the stars. Elias Kale stepped out of the chamber, feeling the weight and the wonder of what he had achieved. Nyxara's misty valley stretched before him, calm yet alive, as if the planet itself acknowledged his growth. He had passed the trials, demonstrated courage, intellect, and empathy, and earned the trust of Lyra, the guardian AI who had waited centuries for one capable of understanding the legacy of her people. Lyra appeared beside him, her form shimmering softly in the dawn light. You have succeeded, Elias Kyle. You have shown what humans can achieve when guided by wisdom, compassion, and courage. Now it is time for the next step. Elias nodded, though a mix of excitement and reverence coursed through him. He had seen visions of a civilization advanced beyond humanity's current understanding. He had learned the lessons of their mistakes, and now, the knowledge he would carry could shape humanity's future. Lyra gestured to the central chamber. The pedestal that had first tested him now pulsed with a serene, steady light. Holographic symbols filled the air, forming complex sequences of energy, data, and history. Elias stepped forward. The patterns wrapped around him, entering his mind not as overwhelming force but as organized understanding. Languages, technology, maps of the stars, principles of diplomacy, and lessons of morality, all flowed into his consciousness. He staggered slightly, overwhelmed by the depth and richness of the legacy. Yet beneath the flood of knowledge he felt a thread connecting him to Lyra, to the extinct civilization, and to the greater potential of humanity itself. This was not just data, it was guidance, wisdom, and hope. You must carry this knowledge carefully, Lyra warned. It is powerful, but it is only valuable if used wisely. Do not seek fame or fortune. Do not let fear or greed cloud your judgment. Your purpose is not merely to know, but to understand, to act responsibly, and to guide others. Elias swallowed hard. I understand. I will not misuse it. I will help humanity grow safely and wisely. Lyra's form shimmered with approval. Good. Humans are rare in their ability to balance ambition with empathy, intellect with morality. That is why you were chosen. The potential you carry is not for yourself alone, but for your species. You will return with this knowledge and the power to inspire, to create, and to protect. But remember, the greatest strength of humanity is not technology, but spirit. Elias felt pride mixed with humility. Humans had explored, fought, and built civilizations, but their true power had always been their spirit. The drive to question, to explore, to rise above fear and uncertainty. Nyxara had tested him, not just as an individual, but as a representative of humanity itself, and he had passed. As he prepared to leave the planet, he took one last look at the misty valleys and the glowing symbols etched into the walls of the structure. The energy of Nyxara thrummed softly, a living heartbeat of knowledge and memory. I will not forget this place, he whispered. I will carry it forward. Lyra's voice followed him into the landing craft, calm yet resonant. And in doing so, you carry more than knowledge. You carry hope. You carry proof that humanity is capable of growth, understanding, and resilience. That is the legacy you return with. That is why you are not alone. The ascent through Nyxara's atmosphere was smooth, but Elias felt a strange pull as if the planet itself hesitated to let him go. He looked down and saw the mist swirling in patterns that suggested eyes, faces, and hands. not threatening but welcoming, acknowledging, and remembering. He realized that the planet, guided by Lyra, had shared itself with him, chosen a human to continue its story. As he reached orbit, he activated the navigation system for the journey home. The stars stretched endlessly before him, but he now viewed them differently. The universe was no longer a cold expanse. It was a map of possibilities, histories, and potential. The lessons of Nyxara echoed in his mind. Knowledge without wisdom was dangerous, strength without empathy was hollow, and curiosity without responsibility was reckless. During the long voyage home, Elias spent hours reflecting on everything he had learned. He organized the knowledge, making notes, summaries, and connections that would allow humanity to understand and use it safely. He thought about the trials, about the lessons Lyra had taught him, and about the courage and empathy that had allowed him to succeed. Each reflection reminded him that humans were capable of greatness, not because they were perfect, but because they dared to try, to learn, and to care. He also thought about the voice that had first greeted him in the mist. "Are you alone, human?" It had carried fear, but now he understood it differently. The question had been a challenge, a measure of human courage and a test of whether he could rise to the potential of his species. He realized that humans were never truly alone. They carried the spirit of their species, the legacy of their civilization, and the power to connect with worlds, life, and knowledge beyond imagination. As Earth appeared on the horizon of his navigation system, Elias felt a surge of anticipation. He carried more than technology or data. He carried proof of what humans could achieve. His heart swelled with pride, not arrogance, but the quiet confidence that humanity, guided by courage, curiosity, and empathy, could face challenges far greater than any one individual. Upon returning to Earth, Elias was greeted by the familiar sights of cities, oceans, and skies, yet he saw them differently. Every human being, every choice, every act of courage or kindness now felt like part of a larger story. He knew that the knowledge of Nyxara could help humanity advance in ways previously unimaginable, in science, diplomacy, and understanding of the cosmos. But he also knew that its value depended on human spirit. He presented the knowledge carefully, first to trusted leaders, scientists, and thinkers. Each lesson was shared with guidance emphasizing responsibility, empathy, and wisdom. Human ingenuity thrived, accelerated by Nyxara's legacy, but always tempered by the moral lessons Elias had learned. Communities worked together, technologies advanced safely, and humanity began to take its place among the stars with a renewed sense of purpose. Elias often thought of Lyra. The AI guardian had chosen him not because of skill alone, but because humans were capable of balance, creativity paired with caution, intelligence paired with empathy, curiosity paired with responsibility. In many ways, Elias realized, humans themselves were the most extraordinary creation in the universe, capable of bridging gaps, surviving challenges, and learning from mistakes of others. Years passed. Elias continued to explore, to teach, and to inspire. He returned to space frequently, visiting worlds where humanity's influence had grown. And always he remembered Nyxara, the mist, the structure, the voice that had tested him, and Lyra, the guardian who had waited centuries for one capable of carrying the legacy forward. Occasionally, when the stars were quiet and the night was still, Elias thought he heard a familiar voice whispering through the cosmos, "You are not alone." Human, he smiled, understanding at last. Humanity's strength was not in solitude, nor in technology alone, nor in conquest. Its strength lay in the courage to explore, the wisdom to understand, and the heart to act with empathy and hope. Humans were not perfect, but they were capable of greatness, and as long as they dared to reach for it, they would never truly be alone. Elias looked up at the night sky, countless stars stretching into infinity, and felt a connection stronger than any he had known. The universe was vast, and challenges would always await, but humanity, with its spirit, ingenuity, and courage, had proven itself capable of rising, learning, and thriving. And somewhere in the quiet spaces between the stars, Lyra's light pulsed gently, a reminder, a guide, and a promise. Elias had carried the legacy of Nyxara, but he had also carried something more. The knowledge that humans, in their hearts and minds, could rise to any challenge, surpass expectations, and leave a lasting mark on the universe. Elias Kale returned home, changed forever, and the story of Nyxara, Its lessons and its trust in humanity would continue, not as a secret but as a legacy, a guiding light for generations to come. Humanity had been tested and humanity had endured, and in that endurance the universe finally knew humans were not alone.